We've all had that dream of the perfect aquarium, right? You know the one, vibrant, living, painting, full of colorful fish swimming peacefully through beautiful plants. It's supposed to be your slice of Zen heaven. But for too many of us, the dream turns into a nightmare, a watery background where fish are stressed, fins are being nipped, and the piece is just gone. So why? Because choosing the right mix of fish is the single most important step for a great community tank. And it's one step that people get wrong time and time again. The problem is that many of the most popular common fish you see at the pet store are frankly just a recipe for disaster. You might be shocked to find that some of your favorite fish are the very reason that your tank is in total chaos. We're pulling back the curtain. We're going to talk about the worst offenders, the fish often sold as community that are anything but. These are the tank bullies, the giants in disguise, the fin dipping terrors that turn relaxing hobby into a massive headache. We're not just here to point out problems. For every fish you should probably skip, I'm going to give you another fantastic alternative that will not only survive, but thrive, helping you to finally get that peaceful, beautiful underwater world you've always wanted. Our first offender is one of the most common fish in the hobby, the common Pleco. You're going to walk into any fish store and see tanks that are full of these little guys, sold as the perfect cleanup crew for any beginner. They look harmless. They just suck away on the grass, maybe 2 or 3 inches long, and the appeal is obvious. A fish that cleans your tank for you seems like a win-win, but this is one of the biggest cons in the fish world. That tiny Pleco you bring home in a bag is hiding a very big secret. It doesn't stay that size, not even close. The common Pleco can grow an incredible 2 feet long. Just let that sink in for a moment. A 2-foot fish does not belong in your 20 or your 55-gallon aquarium. Common plecos can be considered a monster fish that need a lot more volume of water than that. Something you might see at your local aquarium. And as they grow, and they grow constantly, 2 problems show up. First, their bio load is insane. That means they poop a lot. A big pleco produces a massive amount of waste, way more than the algae it's going to eat. So instead of cleaning your tank, it becomes the single biggest polluter in your tank, causing ammonia spikes. They're going to stress out and kill your other fish. Second, their personalities can get kind of nasty as they get older. As babies and juveniles, they're much more peaceful. They're going to be eating your algae more often. But as adults, they kind of can get territorial and aggressive, especially for a bottom dweller. They're clumsy. They're big. They're going to knock over your plants and your decor. And I've even heard horror stories of them latching onto the sides of other fish. They get a taste for that slime coat and they just want to eat it all the time. And once they get a taste for it, they really can't go back. They are simply just a disaster waiting to happen for the average community tank. You all that have massive tanks can keep a common Pleco. But for us, with our smaller tanks, ours keep around 20s, you don't want a common Pleco. So what's the alternative? Well, you want an algae eater that won't turn 2 feet long in a poop factory. The answer for this one is kind of simple. It's the bristlenose Pleco. This is the fish that common Plecos wish they could be. Bristlenose are perfect for your community tanks for one simple reason. They stay small. They max out at about 4 to 5 inches. Yes, some can get a little bigger. For the most part, that's where they max out around, making them a great fit for us smaller aquarium keepers with our 20s and 30-gallon tanks. But it's not just about size. These guys are fantastic algae eaters their whole lives, and they do a much better job keeping your tank clean without wrecking the water quality with all the poop. Temperament-wise, they're peaceful. They're happy to hang out at the bottom of your tank and coexist with pretty much any other peaceful fish you can think of. Tetras, rasboras, corridors, common community fish, you name them, they're pretty much okay with them. There have been times where if you have 2 or 3 in a smaller size, they can get territorial, which is going to happen with almost any fish in a tank. So just keep that in mind if you have a smaller tank like a 20. I'd only put one of these guys in. I wouldn't be putting more than that. 30, probably still just 1. 40, then I could say maybe do 2 and you'll be okay. They spend their days mostly exploring hidey places in your fish tanks, your caves, your driftwood, and they're pretty quirky, especially the males who get the big bristles on their nose, hence the name. They had a ton of personality in your tank. It's going to be a conversation starter if you're showing people your tank too. Make sure you got some driftwood in your tank so they can munch on it. Put a good bottom feeder food in there. Personally, I prefer the Bug Bites bottom feeder or something by North Fin that's going to sit on the bottom of my tank. When you're at the store and you're trying to tell them apart, it can be a little tricky. You're going to want to look closely at the young bristlenoses. They're going to often have a white or yellowish tip on the tip of their fin. With a common Pleco, they don't have that. Choosing a bristlenose over a common Pleco is honestly one of the smartest moves you can make for the future of your tank. Before we get to our next mismatched pair, let's quickly lay down some ground rules for building a peaceful tank. Picking out the right fish is half the battle, but how do you put them together is just as important. Mess this up and even a chill fish can turn into a stress out bully. First up, tank size. And folks, this one's up for debate. Overcrowding is one of the causes of stress and aggression. Always look up the adult size of a fish, not the tiny size you get them at the store, so you can make sure you have plenty of room. Bigger tank is obviously always better. When you're looking up that size, look at a couple different sources. Look for ones that give you a range, not just this fish gets 7 inches. Look for a couple places and make sure you're getting a nice idea for your fish. Second, think about who's going to be added when. That'll be your stocking order. Always add your most peaceful and timid fish first. Let them get settled in and find their comfort zones. One way to help do that is to keep your tank lights off while you're putting them in the tank. The lights will stress the fish out. The more confident, slightly more assertive fish should kind of be added toward the end. And if you drop any territorial fish into an already established tank, it's likely they'll try and claim the whole thing for themselves. So just keep that in mind. Third, you've got to play a little bit of landscaper here and design your tank. An empty, wide open tank is a stage for just fights to happen constant. You're going to want to use driftwood, plants, rocks, even decor if you prefer that, to create hiding spots and things that are going to break that line of sight. Because the way fish are, if you're swimming and you go behind something and the other fish can't see you, it breaks their fish's line of sight and they kind of forget you're there, like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park. This is super important. When fish can't see each other from one end of the other tank, there's going to be fewer turf wars. And lastly, just watch your tank. Pay attention to how your fish act, especially after you add someone new. Are fins looking ragged? Is one fish chasing another? Is one fish always hiding? These are the red flags you're going to have to deal with before things get out of hand. This next fish might be one that seems pretty obvious to pros or people that have been doing this for a while, but it is one of the most common and tragic mistakes for beginners. Goldfish. They're often sold right next to tropical community fish, making newer hobbyists think they can live together. And that's not always the case. Putting a goldfish in a tropical tank is plainly just cruel to the goldfish and usually a death sentence for everyone involved. Biggest issue is going to be temperature. Goldfish are a cold water fish. They do best in unheated aquariums in the mid to upper 60s and lower 70s, whereas most of our tropical fish, we're going to be keeping those between 75 and 80. If you keep a goldfish in those more tropical temperatures, you're essentially putting them in a sauna for life. And I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound fun to me. Why is that bad, you might ask? Well, it's going to send their metabolism into overdrive. It's going to drastically shorten their lifespan and just cause a ton of stress on the fish. For those people that don't know, keeping fish in cooler temperatures can actually extend their lifespan because the warmer the temperatures and their metabolism just goes bonkers. On the flip side, putting a tropical fish in colder waters down to the goldfish level can make them sluggish, make them less colorful, and it can kind of crush their immune system and it eventually will kill them. The only times I've dealt with ick, which I'm sure we've all dealt with it in the past, is when my tank water got too cold for my tropicals. It dropped from the 70s down to the 60s. My fish got stressed and ick swarmed in and I had to take care of it. Put a card here if you've had to deal with that and you want to know how I deal with it. Beyond that, goldfish, like the common Pleco, are just plain messy. They get big, they produce a ridiculous amount of waste, can quickly turn a normal-sized aquarium into a toxic sewer. They're also greedy, messy eaters, and easily outcompete your smaller fish for food. And yes, goldfish will pretty much eat anything that can fit in their mouths. So if you're putting goldfish with neon tetras, that's basically like them eating a snack for them. If you want a hardy, active, and fun fish that is perfect for your community tank, you can't go wrong with Danios. Zebra Danios in particular. First of all, they're everywhere, and they've kind of been nicknamed the bulletproof fish, which is a great thing for anyone just starting out. They're peaceful, they're full of energy, they can handle a wide swing of water conditions as long as it's a gradual change, making them way more forgiving than other species. Danios are also a nice schooling fish. All of our schooling fishes get stressed out if they're not in groups and can socialize. In a school, they're going to feel safe. They're going to be zipping with energy and chasing each other around the tank in these fun, fast-paced laps. They add an amazing sense of life to an active aquarium and can bring out different behaviors in your other fish. They're also completely peaceful. They won't bother their other tank mates, and they can go with a huge variety of what we consider community fish. There are a ton of varieties of Danios too. You don't have to just go with the zebras. Danios are everything that a goldfish is not in a community tank. They're small, they're clean, they're more temperature compatible, and they're a team player. They're not going to go around eating your neon tetras. Next on the list, and let me please be clear here, these are not real sharks. They're actually more related to a minnow, but they have a sleek body that makes them look more shark-like. They're incredibly cool, and of course, saying shark over minnow helps them sell better. The red-tailed shark and the bala shark are the two biggest we have in the hobby. The red-tailed shark has a beautiful jet black body with a bright red tail, and it's really stunning. Something you would really think you'd want in your community tank. They are sold as community fish. Some places label them semi-aggressive. And when they're young, they can kind of act like it. But they don't stay that way forever. As the sharks get older, they get much more territorial, and that instinct kicks into high gear. Rainbow shark will take chunks out of its tank mates. They get super territorial. Anything comes near them, they're going to attack. This is especially bad for people that have bottom dwellers, because these guys prefer to stay middle to bottom. Corridors, loaches, and even some plecos, they're kind of at the mercy of these sharks, and it's just a recipe for disaster. They'll easily be chased without any mercy, which is going to stress them out and lead to injuries down the way. And it's not just aggression towards your bottom fish. They'll harass anyone who swims in their zone. If they have claimed this one corner and any fish gets near it, they will attack them like no end. On top of that, they don't really like their own kind or any fish that kind of remotely looks like them. They're consistently going to be aggressive towards each other, which just stresses everyone out. They might look cool, but for beginners, it's just going to cause a headache that you don't want to mess with. For me, the best alternatives for these guys are going to be Tetras, Cardinals, Embers, Congos, Serpes, depends on the size of your tank. For you smaller tank keepers, Cardinals, Embers, Neons, Reminos even, they're still going to give you beautiful flashes of color, and they're going to have an awesome schooling behavior without any of that aggression. And to me, the Tetra family will be your absolute best friend if you're looking for a community aquarium. Yes, there are some that are kind of like that one uncle you never talk to unless it's Christmas, but for the most part, they're all wonderful. There's a Tetra out there for just about any size tank, any demeanor of your tank. They're really the textbook definition of a peaceful community fish, in my opinion. Neons are famous for those glowing blue and red stripes. They're a little less beginner friendly than something like a cardinal, which just has a red stripe that runs down the whole body length. But cardinals are a little harder to find than neons, and if you get neons from a reputable source, you should be okay. Those guys are good for your 15s and 20s. If you have a smaller tank, something like an Ember Tetra, tiny little floating orange to red, beautiful colored fish, depending on what you feed them. Secret to happy Tetras is, just like with Danios, keep them in a good school. Normally, I wouldn't go any lower than 6 for a school of Tetras, but if I'm being honest, I would say you're going to want 9, 10, 15. Really, the bigger the school you get with these guys, they feel more secure, their colors get brighter, and they're moved together as a one unit, which is going to create a living, shimmering river of color in your tanks. This schooling isn't just pretty, it's a sign of happiness in these fish. So the more you can get, the better off you'll be. Tetras are also incredibly peaceful and will live happily with tons of other species in the tank. They're smaller, they don't produce a lot of waste, and they're generally easier to care for. So instead of angry bullies that are going to hog your tank, you can have a whole crew of peaceful, dazzling fish that bring out color, movement, and more importantly, harmony to this community. If you want an easy, simple community tank, you can get 2 or 3 kinds of Tetras in nice schools and then throw a corridor for something at the bottom, and you've just made a beautiful community tank. The Dwarf Gourami is another fish that's very popular and widely recommended, but it comes with a big list of problems. They're gorgeous, there's no doubt about that, especially the males when they color up. They're solid as a perfect centerpiece fish for your smaller community. The problem is their personalities can be a serious issue. Now, despite being small, these dwarf male gouramis are shockingly territorial and aggressive. Now, this is more so the powder blue guys, but most of the dwarf gouramis. they're going to go at each other similar to male betas. Anyone that looks like them, they're attacking. If you put two males together in any tank that's not really big and heavily planted, that's going to block those lines of sights, they're basically just going to fight to the death. And then they're going to direct that aggression towards other tank mates, and they're going to become little tyrants that just chase away other fish to get their food. Beyond aggression, dwarf gouramis are sadly more prone to specific illnesses. Disease is more widespread in commercially bred fish and just causes them to get sick and die for apparently no reason, which is another reason why bringing a dwarf gourami home can just be a heartbreaking gamble. If you're set on the look of a gourami, but you want to skip the potential health problems and aggression, my pick for an alternative is going to be the honey gourami. It's a perfect choice. It's pretty in every way. It's a nice pop of yellow. It's just a better fish overall. Honey gouramis are known for being more peaceful and gentle than their dwarf gourami cousins. They're way less aggressive, they're more well behaved, and they add a nice layer to your community tank. I've even kept a dwarf gourami with a beta fish, even though everybody on here told me you can't do that. They're going to fight each other. They stayed in their own separate lanes. Now, I may have lucked out, so don't put them together, but my honey gourami and my beta kept each other alone. Other thing is they stay small. They're going to max out around 2 inches, making them a great centerpiece for your 10 gallons or your 20s. While males might have a little squabble if they're in the mood to breed, it's nothing serious and can be managed with, again, plenty of plants and hiding spots to break that line of sight. Most of the time, they're just being curious. They're really intelligent fish that want to explore around and don't really bother many other things. The honey gourami has a beautiful golden color, and you can find a sunset variety that kind of has more reds and oranges throughout, more like a gradient look on the fish. They may not be as flashy blue as their dwarf gourami counterpart, but the personality is pure gold, just like their color. You can keep one, a pair, even a group, depending on the size of your tank, and they'll add a touch of grace and intelligence to your community tank. They're hardy, they're not known for the same health issues, and they're just generally a joy to keep. Now, when I was making this list, it did sadden me to put this next fish on here, but 95% of the time, these guys up are a culprit of being a not so community fish. If you can guess what it is before I start talking about it, drop what your guesses are down in the comments. These fish are another one that people love because of their bold stripes and wild energy. Did you guess it yet? They're always moving and they can be really fun to watch, but they have a well-earned and infamous reputation for one thing, being fin nippers. If you haven't guessed it by now, we're talking about the tiger barb. They are, at times, relentless bullies to any fish that is slower or, most importantly, has long flowing fins. Putting tiger barbs in tanks with angelfish, beta fish, or fancy guppies is guaranteed disaster. Don't do it. The long and beautiful fins of those fish are a magnet to the tiger barbs, and they're going to harass them endlessly, resulting in torn fins, stress, and just overall bad quality of health. This isn't just something that happens once in a while. It's kind of who they are. Now, some people will tell you if you keep them in a huge school, like a dozen or more, they will nip at each other. And yes, that is a strategy that can help. It is also a huge gamble. It doesn't fully eliminate the risk to your other fish, and if you're only going to have a smaller volume like a 10 or 20, you really wouldn't want to keep a dozen of these guys in a 10. Putting a dozen of them in a 20 is going to seriously limit what you can put with them. So if it was me, the best way to eliminate this as a potential issue is just get rid of them altogether. Because at the end of the day, why risk it when there are so many other options you could do? For most community tanks, they're just not worth the headache unless you have a much larger tank. So for these, I have 2 alternate suggestions. One up is going to be the Platy. If you want a splash of color and activity without the fin nipping, you couldn't have a more better option. Platies are truly peaceful, they're tough, they're a colorful fish, and they're just a fantastic choice. Platies come in every different combination of colors and patterns you could imagine. They're active, they're curious. A lot of people call them water puppies because they swim right up and greet you. Plus, they're a live bearer, so they give birth to really teeny little babies, and it's just fascinating to watch. More importantly, they're 100% peaceful. But if you still want something that has that barb look, I would say cherry barb. Cherry barbs are a perfect peaceful version of their tiger barb cousin. They're much calmer. They aren't known for fin nipping. The males get a nice deep cherry red color, especially when they show off for the females. They're a bit shyer than tiger barbs, so they're going to also appreciate having plenty of plants to make them feel safe, and keeping them also in a small school brings out the best colors and natural behaviors. You get that active barb presence without any of the barbarian behavior, making them a much better citizen person for your peaceful tank. So we've covered some of the biggest troublemakers that can ruin your community tank and some of the all-star alternatives that can make it amazing. If you've accidentally ever brought one of these bullies home, don't feel bad. Trust me, it's a mistake that almost every single person in this hobby has made. And if someone tells you they've never made the mistake of putting a community fish or a semi-aggressive fish in a community tank, they're probably just lying to you so that they think you're smarter than them. So go ahead and hit that like button if you learned something new, or if it just helps you to avoid a future headache. And if you want to make sure you're always getting solid advice and for creating a beautiful aquarium, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. The dream of a peaceful, thriving community aquarium is completely achievable. It's not about luck. It's about knowledge and making good choices. The single biggest takeaway here in this is do your research before you buy a fish. Don't just trust a little label at the pet store. Understand the adult size, the personality, and needs of every fish you bring home. By avoiding these common traps, the giants like the common Pleco, the aggressive fakers like the red-tailed shark, or the fin nippers like the tiger barb, you're already halfway there. And by choosing their superior, more peaceful alternatives like the bristlenose Pleco, a dazzling school of Tetras, your good-natured Platies and cherry barbs, you're building a foundation for a tank that's a joy to watch. Your aquarium should be a source of relaxation, not stress. So choose your fish wisely and create an underwater world you can be proud of. What is one fish that you would never add to community tank again? And what's your go-to bulletproof, peaceful fish that has never let you down? I do read every single comment and I respond to everyone. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.